This is When You Were Everything, chapter Spinning Stories, pages 343 to 348. We fill his hallway with light. Candles glow softly from every corner of Dom's entryway, the kitchen, and atop the bricked-over fireplace in the den. I think, but don't say aloud, a line from The Merchant of Venice every time a wick catches and brightens another corner of the house. How far that little candle throws his beams. There is only a slight spray of water under two of the upstairs windows, and I leave Dom downstairs to clean that up with the thick towel I used to dry off. My phone buzzes, and it's Sydney. Okay, I think I know how I'm going to murder Sloane. But I'm Dom drunk, and the rumor feels like something that happened a lifetime ago. I send a cry-laughing emoji. Let's talk about it later. I'm at Dom's. She sends back about 87 exclamation points, and I smile and click my phone's power button so that the screen goes dark. Dom finds me a few minutes later and kisses me hard and long against the damp curtains. We put small tea-light candles on the right side of each stair so Lolly can pick her way up without any trouble. For Pop, we leave a battery-operated lantern on the kitchen counter so he can make his way through the house regardless of where he decides to go. And in each bathroom, we leave a scented candle so that they smell sweet and are lit with a soft, golden kind of shine. In Dom's room, along with candles, we light incense. Good job, I tell Dom once we're back upstairs. Watching his steady hands light dozens of candles hasn't done much for my psyche. If anything, I want him more now in this dimly lit dark. He turns after lighting a candle that sets the last corner of his room aglow. Thanks for the help, Shorty, he says. He looks over at me, and for the first time since he asked me about Shakespeare, I purposefully look away from him, out at where the rain still pours. I squint at a nearby lamppost that's as dark as all the rooms in Dom's house. The power lines that lead to it are strung with a few pairs of sneakers. The wet shoes shine in the moonlight. Dom sits on his bed, and I walk toward him slowly. He swallows, and I feel the possibilities opening up before us like a book that is filled with blank pages. Instead of kissing him again, which is what my body is screaming to do, my eyes land on an old copy of The Secret Garden that's sitting on his nightstand. And once again, something about Dom surprises me. No way, I say, reaching for it. You're reading this? He looks a little embarrassed for a second, but then he admits it with a nod. I haven't read this book since I was a kid, but I loved it when I was younger, I tell him, turning it over in my hands. His copy is well worn, with yellow pages and a frayed paperback cover, and when I flip it open, I see this book belongs to Dominic A. Gray, written in a child's scrawl. It makes me smile to imagine him writing his name in this book, proclaiming it is his because he loved it so much. Lolly got it for me the year I turned 10, Dom says. He looks at me closely, like he's making a difficult decision about something. He takes the book from me and picks up one of my hands. He plays with my fingers, and then, it seems, he decides to trust me with another small piece of his story. When I was 10, I was kind of a little jerk, Dom says, and I laugh. It was the year when I realized my mom and dad weren't ever going to show up in the way they had been promising to since I was little. They would call all the time and promise that the next time they visited, it would be for forever, or that I'd come to live with them soon. They'd send me birthday cards and Christmas presents, but never actually stick around. And I think when I turned 10, I figured out that everything they'd been telling me was all BS, you know? So I was kind of a jerk to Lolly and Pop for like a year. I took it out on them since I couldn't take it out on the people I was really angry at. I look down at our hands in his lap. He twists the ring I'm wearing on my thumb around and around. He presses our palms together, then laces his fingers through mine before he starts talking again. So I think she got me that book to try to shake some sense into me. Mary, the main character, is a bit of a jerk at the beginning of the story. I laugh again and nod. From what I remember, he's right. And, then everyone she's ever known dies and she has to go live with strangers. I don't think Lolly meant it as a threat, if you don't shape up, we're all going to die. I chuckle, and so does he. But Mary, she doesn't have any friends until she stops being mean, and then she finds this awesome garden full of magic. I unlace our fingers and take his forearm in my hands. I trace his veins from the base of his wrist up to the crook of his elbow. He squirms a little, I guess because it tickles, but he doesn't pull away. I want to study every inch of his skin. I obviously now know how messed up it is that the garden fixed Colin, the kid who had to use the wheelchair, and there were some other pretty problematic things in that story. But overall, I totally relate to that book, and to Mary. Her parents didn't care about her, and it made her angry. So she was a mean kid for a while. But then she realized that there's still so much good in the world, There's still a chance for things to be amazing, even if your life didn't start out so great. But it's kind of up to you to build the life you want. He's killing me with this history of his, the way it's all tied up in books and his philosophy about everything. And now that we've been touching for the last hour, I don't know how I'll ever survive not touching him again. I throw my legs over his lap because even though I'm right beside him, it's not close enough, and everything that is happening feels like the beginning of our story, the end of the prologue to the short past we've shared. Cleo, he says seriously, and I don't think my name has ever sounded quite as good as it does when Dom speaks it out loud. I'm lost in him, but he's trying to tell me something, so I pull myself out of my own head and listen more closely. Yeah? You're doing that thing you do. What thing? I ask. That thing where you start telling yourself a story about what's happening instead of paying attention to what's actually happening. I blush, thinking of Gigi. When I went dreamy and silent around my grandmother, I tell Dom, she'd say I was spinning stories. You miss her? He asks, and I nod. All the time. I can't imagine not having Lolly, he says softly. So I get it. But maybe stop spinning stories for a second? He smiles a little. I'm trying to tell you something. I know. I'm listening. He looks up at his walls, then back down at where my legs are flopped over his. It's like this, he says. I saw you that first day in Mr. Yoon's class, right? On the first day of school, and you were sitting there with your freckles and your purple glasses, your fresh braids, and those ridiculous boots. I remembered you right away, and bumping into you like that, ending up at the same school and in the same homeroom against all odds, it made me wonder about fate. It made me rethink everything. I think I see where he's going with this, though I feel like we're in a philosophy classroom instead of on a bed. I feel like there should be books in front of us instead of sweatpants-clad legs, tingling skin and our own urgent fingers. Like how you wouldn't be a person determined to take control if it weren't for the things that happened to you that you couldn't control. I'm going to read that again because that was a hard sentence to go over a page break. It made me rethink everything, like how you wouldn't be a person determined to take control if it weren't for the things that happened to you that you couldn't control. Okay, I'm going to do that one more time because I'm still trying to figure that out. It made me rethink everything, like how you wouldn't be a person determined to take control if it weren't for the things that happened to you that you couldn't control. Okay, that makes sense to me now. He nods. Kind of. And then, after we talked about Macbeth and I started writing that paper, I realized it's not one or the other, fate or free will. It's both. Things you can't control happen all the time. He shifts, moving closer to me just as we hear his front door open and Pop call out to us from the entryway. Dom's voice is soft and urgent when he speaks again, but you can control what you do next. He picks up a card from a deck on the table behind him. He holds it, waves his hand, and makes it disappear. I grin. Action is eloquence, I say, quoting Coriolanus, a play I've only read once. He moves his hands again in a way that's too quick for me to see. The card reappears. Exactly, he says.